use she/a pronouns, and I am the OC Human Relations Commission Director at Groundswell. I'm truly honored to welcome you all today to the release of the 2022 Hate Crimes Report. Today we gather not only as concerned citizens, but as a united community dedicated to fostering understanding, combating prejudice, and striving for a world free of hatred and discrimination. But before we dive into the important findings of this report, I would like to share some essential housekeeping items. First, I kindly ask that you silence your phones or turn them off. If you do need to take a call or send a message, can you please step out of the event space and do so freely. Restroom facilities are to my left or right. You will serve, so if you need to use the restroom facilities, please do so at any time. We do want to acknowledge that the content we're about to discuss today can be emotionally challenging. And if at any point you feel the need to take a moment to process or need emotional support, please don't hesitate to do so. Your well-being is our priority, and we encourage everyone to prioritize self-care when needed. Now, upon arrival, you should have received an event agenda. And if you did not get one, please approach our staff at the staff check-in table and they will give you a copy. This agenda will be a handy reference throughout the program, so please keep it with you at your convenience. Now, for the reason that we're here. This annual report represents more than just a compilation of statistics. It reflects our collective commitment to addressing the pressing issue of hate. The data contained within this report serves as a stark reminder that hate activity continues to affect the lives of countless individuals and communities here in Orange County and across the nation. It challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths and redouble our efforts in the pursuit of justice, equity, and inclusivity. Yet, in the face of these disheartening statistics, we must not lose sight of the fact that this report can also symbolize hope. Hope that by working together, we can make a difference. So as we delve into the findings of the 2022 Hate Crime Report today, let us remember that we are not alone in this fight. We stand together as a resilient community, determined to confront hate with love, ignorance with knowledge, and intolerance with understanding. And as we hear from our Spotlight community members this morning, let us remember and honor, respect their courage. They've shared their stories to help us understand better. So let us embrace them, show them that they belong, and that we value their voices. Lastly, I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to all of those who contributed to this report. You know who you are. Thank you so much. And to all of you in this room today, thank you for all being here with us, for your unwavering commitment to more inclusive and just society, and for joining us as we release this 2022 Hate Crimes Report. Together, we can build a future free from hate. And with that, I would like to call my colleague Leonette Talavera to the stage for the land acknowledgement.
Today we respectfully acknowledge that Orange County is on a traditional land of the Tonga and the Hachima people. And with the connection of indigenous people to our land continues today. We have responsibility to honor those connections and those words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard. We thrive to understand our place within the past, the present, and the future of these indigenous lands by reflecting on our relationships and history. Now I would like to invite Ally to continue.
Thank you, Danelle and Norma. I'm Ally Edwards. I'm the CEO of the nonprofit Groundswell. And we are the partnering agency with the County of Orange, who collects and compiles this data to be released every year. The first report was produced over 30 years ago on a typewriter in a basement. And we have come quite a ways since and made a lot of changes. I'm happy to share that we now have a 24/7 call center where you can report hate. You can report in multiple ways, in multiple languages. We have partners around the county who provide victim support services and mental health services for different cultures and in different languages. We have over 30 organizations who report and contribute data to this report, from educational organizations to law enforcement to other nonprofits and community-based organizations. We want to thank the County of Orange for this continued partnership. We appreciate the attention and care that is required to address hate in the county, and especially the increased support in these most recent years when hate activity has increased in the County of Orange. I also want to thank some of our honorable guests that are with us today. I'm going to list a few and I'll ask you to stand when or wave maybe. Or wave. No one likes to stand. Lillian Holler from the Office of Assemblywoman Petra Norris. Elizabeth Lavazari from the Officer of State Senator Josh Newman. Isael Hermosia from the Department of Justice Community Relations Services Office. Libby Jacobson, also from the Department of Justice Community Relations Services. And Jessica Guerrero from the Officer of Supervisor Doug Kennedy's office. I want to thank you all for being here and joining us today. It's so important that our leaders are paying attention to what's happening in these issues. Lastly, I want to thank everyone who contributed to this report. So if you are from an organization, school district, police department, etc., who contributed, I am going to ask you to stand up. And I know you're here, so some people better stand up. So thank you. Our law enforcement partners, our nonprofit partners, keep standing. Keep standing. All right. If you are from 211, please stand. If you are a commissioner, please stand. If you are a board member of the nonprofit Groundswell, please stand. And if you are a staff member who put tireless hours into compiling this data, please stand. Even if you're at the front of the room. I want you to know this report does not happen without these partners. We have excellent staff, but certainly with over 3 million people in the county, partnership is what makes this work. So we are so grateful to you all that you not only provide data for this report, many of you sit at the table with us when we think about what we need to do to prevent hate. So we'll talk more about that today, but I just want to sincerely express our gratitude for all the hard work and partnerships on this task. Tremendously important. With that, I have the great pleasure of introducing Vice Chair Jennifer Wing, who is going to take us into the next part of our program.
Good morning, and on behalf of the Orange County Human Relations Commission, I want to thank you for joining today's release of the 2022 Orange County Hate Crimes Report. My name is Jennifer Wing, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Human Relations Commission. The Human Relations Commission is comprised of volunteers appointed by the Board of Supervisors to seek out the causes of tension and conflict, discrimination and intolerance, and attempt to eliminate those causes. My fellow commissioners and I take this responsibility seriously, and we're grateful for the trust placed to us to work in collaboration with our community leaders and our community partners to address and combat hate crimes in Orange County. The purpose of the Hate Crimes Report is to increase awareness, strengthen hate crime prevention programming, and promote a bias-free community. I want to especially thank Allison Edwards for her leadership and vision at Groundswell, with whom the Commission works closely with to address and work towards a vision of Orange County where hate is fully eliminated. Orange County is home to 3.2 million people living between 34 cities and is one of America's most diverse counties with large, diverse immigrant population, multiple languages spoken with over 40% of our population being foreign-born, and over 80 religions practiced. We know our diversity strengthens our community, and we share a vision of the future where all communities lift each other up, embracing, respecting, and learning about different cultures. Unfortunately, hate activity has been a steady incline in Orange County. Reported hate incidents and crimes have increased by 13% in the last year and have risen by 90% in the last 5 years since 2017. The rise in hate activity is felt by all in our community. The Black community was the most targeted for race-related hate crimes and hate incidents. The Jewish community was the most targeted for religious-related hate activity. There is a 178 increase of bias-motivated hate activity in schools compared to 2021. There was a 126 increase of LGBTQ hate activity reported compared to 2021. Anti-Hispanic bias crimes within California actually rose from 197 from 2021 to 210 in 2022. This alarming upward trend in hate activity doesn't just impact the individuals and communities directly involved or targeted. It affects everyone in Orange County because hate hurts us all. In 2022, Orange County faced an unimaginable hate-motivated shooting at a place of worship right in our own backyard. A gunman attacked a lunch banquet at Geneva Presbyterian Church in Laguna Woods, where most of the congregants were elderly of the Taiwanese American community. 5 congregants were wounded and one life was lost. As the executive director of the Asian American Senior Citizen Service Center, this hit particularly close to home as several of our seniors were present or know those who were. Our hearts were broken and we continue to grieve for the victims of the horrific act of gun violence in Laguna Woods and support their families and friends. The rise of hate cannot be ignored. We are seeing and experiencing in our streets, parks, schools, neighborhoods, and places of worship. In response to this upward trend, Orange County Human Relations Commission launched the Hate Hurts Us All campaign with the hope to improving and increasing access to reporting platforms, ability to report in language, and increasing access to resources in Orange County. Improving victim services and support via establishing a comprehensive referral infrastructure and expanding direct services. Improve community understanding and engagement in addressing hate and bias through the Hate Hurts Us All campaign. On behalf of the Human Relations Commission, I'd like to dedicate the 2022 Hate Crimes Report in honor of Dr. John Chang, who demonstrated unwavering bravery, courage, and selflessness by putting himself in harm's way so that others, many who are older adults, would have a better chance of survival. Dr. Chang paid the ultimate sacrifice after he tackled and attempted to disarm the gunman. If it were not for his actions, Dr. Chang, there most certainly would have been more lives lost. In our hope that the annual report serves both as a reminder that there's still work to be done and as a call to action for everyone. We know that hate hurts us all, and we also know that it will take all of us working together in collaboration and in community to eliminate the hate in Orange County. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to working together for a more loving, inclusive Orange County free of hate. Now, I'd like to welcome to the stage our Groundswell staff, Hillia and Jesus, who will be leading the data presentation.
My name is Jesus Malapa, he, him pronouns. I am a staff member with Groundswell Victim Support Advocate with our organization, member of the community building team. Glad to be here to present this data briefing and also have Keely.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Keely Dago. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a senior human relations specialist focusing on hate prevention with Groundswell. So happy to be here with you today. So I know this is what you all came here for, the data, the numbers. So So we're gonna jump into that right now. Perfect. So before I get started, we did want to talk a little bit about a little bit of background on the hate crimes report. And as a caveat, we are giving a very high-level overview of the report. Please do read the report for all the specific data. We're just giving you kind of an overview this morning. So, as Jennifer shared, the purpose of the hate crime report is really about informing residents and county stakeholders about the human relations climate here in Orange County. It's all about documenting and analyzing incidences of hate so that we can better understand the scope and nature of these offenses. It helps us identify trends and helps us develop strategies to prevent and address hate. When talking about the methodology, we receive reports from all over. Reports received from individuals, law enforcement, school districts, higher ed institutions, and community organizations. When we do receive reports, duplicates are eliminated, and then if the cases meet the criteria for the legal definition of a hate crime, they're then referred to law enforcement. The report also includes hate incident data, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, and that helps us identify red flags for trends and areas to focus on for our prevention work. And then finally, the data itself. So for this report in 2022, 29 municipal police departments shared hate activity data with us. The OC Sheriff's Department also shared hate activity information. We heard from 4 community organizations, 6 higher ed institutions, and 7 school districts. And then we've also included 24 hate crime reports that were included in the California Attorney General's findings. So that's where all of the data came from this report. And then I want to talk just a minute about underreporting. So while these numbers you're going to see today are staggering, we do want them to have the caveat that we know that underreporting is a big issue. According to the U.S. Justice Department, hate crimes and incidents potentially occur 24 to 28 times more often than reported. So as I said, the numbers are staggering and they're underreported. And underreporting happens for a lot of reasons, but most of all, it's the stigma of being involved with hate. Being involved or the victim of hate carries a lot of fear and stigma, guilt, and shame. And that is also part of this report. We're talking about it to remove that stigma. It is okay to come forward and tell your story about hate. So, what is a hate crime? That's what we're talking about, right? So, according to the state of California, a hate crime is a crime against a person, group, or property that's motivated by the victim's real or perceived protected social group. For the purposes of this report, the protected social groups that we're talking about are disability, gender, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and the association with a person or group with one or more of these actual or perceived characteristics. Next slide, please. And then hate incidents. You're going to hear that a lot today, too. I know it's called the Hate Crimes Report, but we actually take data on both crimes and incidents of hate. So the reason why we do that is because when hate incidents happen, we can kind of see the way that trends are going so that we can identify areas where prevention and support are needed. And a hate incident, the only difference is that the behavior that's happening does not meet the threshold of a crime. So as you see on this slide, the hate crime is the bias motivation plus a crime, where a hate incident is behavior plus a bias motivation. So it is still biased behavior that's hateful, it just doesn't reach the threshold of a crime in the state of California. But we do take data on both. Then I'll turn it over to Jesus to start talking about the data.
Thank you. So, as Keely mentioned, the California Department of Justice also publishes a hate crime report annually, and we did include 24 hate crime reports from that report itself to compare with our data as well. And according to this year's report, there were 2,120 occurrences of hate crimes in California. And that is an increase in 20.2% of hate crimes since 2020. So in 2022, we actually had a total of 450 hate crimes and hate incidents reported to Orange County. That was a 94% increase since 5 years ago, so compared to 2018. And for hate crimes, we had 162 reported in 2022 and 288 reported hate incidents in 2022 as well. Thank you. So like I mentioned, there's 162 reported hate crimes in 2022. That was a 67% increase from 2021. There was also a 193% increase in crimes with anti-religious bias from 2021, as well as a 138% increase in crimes with anti-Black bias from 2021. And here we have hate crimes organized by bias motivations. So we use the categories of race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, disability, and other. Here the 24 unknown are listed as other just because we don't have disaggregated data from the Attorney General's report. But for race, as you can see, we had a total of 73 hate crime reports come in. And from those 73, there's actually 52% of race-related hate crimes that were anti-Black bias. From the 44 hate crimes received for religious bias, there were a total of 43% of reports with anti-Semitic bias. And where bias was sexual orientation, there was 48 reports of hate crimes with anti-homosexual male gay bias. And the reason for sexual orientation and gender bias to be separated is that some reports actually included specific data on who was the target, for example, anti-transgender, while other reports use general terms such as anti-LGBTQ. Thank you. And here we have a graph of the hate crimes according to the type of hate crimes reports that we received. And as you can see, 44% of hate crimes included graffiti and vandalism, and 28% of hate crimes included physical assault and battery.
Thanks so much, Jesus, for the hate crime data. And again, as we said, these are staggering numbers, and again, we know that this is underreported. So as we were putting together this presentation, we thought it was important to give some reality behind the numbers so that they don't just look like numbers on a graph. So we're going to share a couple of actual reports that we received for this 2022 hate crimes report. So as Jesus mentioned, graffiti and vandalism was the type of offense that occurred the most often in 2022 for hate crime. And so here's an example, a report that we received in February of 2022 that it has graffiti and vandalism as the crime and anti-Semitic bias. The word Jew and a swastika were tagged on the walls of a business. And then another one, physical assault and battery was the second most often occurrence that we received of hate crime reports, and this has an anti-Black and anti-Latino bias. So a victim was assaulted because the offender admitted to not liking, they said, a negative term for a Black person and Mexicans. We received this in May of 2022. So these numbers on this report are not just numbers. Every single report is a real person who has been the victim of hate, and we really wanted to make sure that that was made very clear in this report.
Thank you. And so we move on to the hate incidents data. So as we mentioned earlier, there's 288 reported hate incidents in 2022. And although that is a 4% decrease from 2021, we still saw a 161% increase in incidents with sexual orientation bias from 2021. We also saw a 151% increase in incidents in the school setting. And a further breakdown actually showed that a majority of the hate incidents that occurred at schools came from middle schools. You'll be able to see that breakdown a little bit later in the report. Next slide. And so again, this is a breakdown of hate incidents by bias motivation. And so 158 of the incident reports were race-related, and we actually have 43% of those hate incidents included anti-Black bias. From the 77 reports for religious-related hate incidents, we had 87% of those reports with anti-Semitic bias. And for sexual orientation-related bias motivations, we had 34% of the reports hate incidents with anti-homosexual gay bias. Next slide, please. And here we have a breakdown of the locations of where hate incidents were occurring. So, as mentioned, 36% of the hate incidents happen at schools, 21% of hate incidents happen at residences. And you can see kind of a breakdown of the different places where hate incidents are occurring, the largest, again, being 103 reports happening at schools.
Thank you, Jesus. And just like for hate crimes, we wanted to give some real reports that we received to go to the hate incidents. So here's an example that we received in February of 2022 with verbal harassment and an anti-LGBTQ bias. So the offender used derogatory terms and flipped off the victim. The victim was wearing a pride-themed shirt at the time of the incident. And the next two are going to be examples we received from schools, since we're seeing such a high uptick in hate activity in our schools. So this is a report from March of 2022 that involved name calling with an anti-Black, anti-AAPI bias. At the lunch tables, students would say a word that is a negative term for Black people and some terms that are negative words for the AAPI community. And we received that in March of 2022. And then finally, this is another school example where name calling with an anti-LGBTQ and an anti-Latino bias, which for a minute we wanted to use this one specifically to note that, as you'll notice, there's more than one bias motivation, and oftentimes we know that hate can be intersectional. Which means that oftentimes we'll see that hate is not just under one category, it can be under multiple categories. So for example, someone could be hateful against me both because I'm Black, but also because I'm queer. So that would be an example of intersectional hate, which this is an example of. And this is in November of 2022, where a student used a homophobic slur, called another student's taco head, and told the student that Mexican Heritage Month is over and that next month will be my month because I have white privilege. And again, like Jesus mentioned, the majority of the reports that we received from schools were from middle schools.
Thank you, Julia. And so I know we shared a lot of important information, a lot of numbers being shared at this moment. Again, please look at the report after concluding the presentation. But before we conclude the data portion of it, we wanted to share some additional noteworthy trends. So as was mentioned, in the last 5 years, hate crimes and incidents both continue to be on the rise, with a 75% increase in the last 5 years for hate crimes and 142% increase for hate incidents. The Black community and the Jewish community continue to be targeted for race-related and religious-related hate activity. And there was a 178% increase of bias-motivated hate activity in schools compared to 2021, as well as 126% increase in anti-LGBTQ hate activity reported compared to 2021. And again, all of this data was collected thanks to community, law enforcement, organizations that help support the community. And so one of the neat things that we launched at the middle of last year was in partnership with 211OC United Way, a how to report phone line and online form as well. So you can actually call 211 or use the online form or email at OC Hate Activity at 211OC. And lastly, text OC Hate Activity to the number on the presentation. And you can use the online form to submit any report in these 8 different languages. So we have English, Vietnamese, Arabic, Tagalog, Chinese, Persian, Korean, and Spanish. And again, this is to help the community feel safe in reporting and find an outlet just in case that they do not want to go to law enforcement first. But if, again, the incident does rise to a level of crime, we do try to urge the community to reach out to law enforcement so that they get the best solution for what they're feeling and engaged in the moment.
All right, well, that was a lot of information. Again, this was just a high-level summary overview of the report. We really encourage everyone to look at the report. We're going to show you on the next slide where to find it. There's also a QR code on your presentation. But now that the report's done, now what, right? So we really, in an effort to not just have the report out there and say, look at all of this terrible data, we have some recommendations, and these are all skewed towards prevention. We are really looking to move work from being a response-based to prevention. Right? We don't want to always be responding to hate when it happens. We want to prevent it before it happens in the first place. So in that vein, we have 3 different buckets of recommendations. And we have much more of this again in the report itself. But we talk about narrative, safety, and funding in terms of how to prevent hate. So narrative, that's all about increasing understanding of differences, and that is part of what this report's all about. It's about education, dispelling misinformation about all of the isms that we have to interact with in our life, conducting research to find and prevent patterns and trends of hate activity. And most of all, reject the normalization of bias-motivated hate. It is so important that we keep sight of the fact that hate is not normal. None of this behavior is normal. Hate crimes, hate incidents is not normal, and we reject the normalization of hate. And then we move to safety. So safety as prevention. So that looks like posting statements outlining a commitment to anti-hate, adopting practices of transparency and hate activity reporting, which is Jesus talked about on the last slide. We're so excited about our partnership with 211 OC United Way. It's really been helpful in adopting transparency practices. Safety looks like investigating, tracking, and reporting both hate crimes and hate incidents. Please report hate when you see it, when you are involved in it. And it also looks like supporting legislation that focuses on safety from hate in public spaces. And finally, funding, because we are a nonprofit and we couldn't not talk about funding. So for us, prevention and funding looks like allocating permanent city and county budgets for anti-hate programs that are not tied to temporary, emergency, or COVID money. It looks like redirecting organizational budgets for education, training, professional development that teach people about anti-hate. And it looks like sharing grant and private donor opportunities, because we're really clear that the only way that we are going to be able to eliminate hate in Orange County is by doing so together. So that is how we're gonna solve this problem, is by working together. Then finally, this is where to find the report. There's several places that the report can be found. It can be found on our Groundswell website. It can be found on the Orange County Human Relations Commission website. And it can be also found at the Hate Versus All website. So please, after this presentation, we really encourage everyone to check out the report. It's in a printable format. Please print it out and share it. We would love everyone in the county to know about this report, to read this report, and be familiar with it. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Julia and Jesus, for this informative and thought-provoking data presentation. I'm sure it gives us a lot to think about, a lot to process. And with that, this allows us to segue into our panel discussion. As I mentioned earlier, these are courageous folks who are willing to share their story, and I think the important part is to be able to listen with open hearts and embrace their stories as our own, because they are part of this community, and we need to respect and honor their bravery for being here today. With that, I'd like to introduce our community panel moderator, our esteemed and amazing Human Relations Commission Vice Chair, Jennifer Wang, and help me welcome the following people to the stage who are part of her esteemed panel. Stephanie Camacho Van Dyke. She's the Director of Policy and Education for the LGBTQ Center of Orange County. Ernesta Wright, who is the Executive Director for the Green Foundation. And then last but not least, Asher Belch, who is an Orange County High School student, but also a participant in the Bridges and HR Ambassadors program with Groundswell. So before they get started, I do want to share that we will have, if we have enough time, we will have a Q&A session where people will be able to ask questions of panelists. But what we'll do is, we have several Groundswell members who are going to pass out index cards with 2 pens, right? Jot down your questions beforehand and then hand them over. And if we get through everything, we can ask some questions of our panelists that way. So without further ado, Jennifer, take it away.
I want to reiterate what just said. Thank you so much in advance for sharing your story and representing your community. And I said earlier, it's not just limited to your community. I want everybody here to understand that you need to embrace each and every one of them. So why don't we actually just start off quite simply. Can you please tell us more about yourself and your organization and your community?
I'll be happy to. I am glad to say and share with you, I am Ernesta Wright, as indicated, the Executive Director of the Green Foundation, and GREEN stands for Gathering Resources to Educate and Empower Through Networks, and we understand about collaboration. We do health education from a comprehensive standpoint, that we provide medical doctors and experts in different health fields to be able to come and to share related up-to-date treatments and information about health. And our target, as well as our identified community, is the African American Black community. But I also like to love and share that we always connect anybody that contact us to the next stop.
My name is Asher Belshi. I go to a high school in Garden Grove Unified School District. I am a high school senior. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a very openly queer student. Less openly, I am a transgender male, and I receive different hate incidents and recognize the hate found on my school campus.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Camacho Van Dyke, pronouns she, her, ella. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Education at the LGBTQ Center of C. We're a nonprofit organization that's located in the heart of Santa Ana. We provide a variety of different services and programs that uplift the LGBTQ community, so for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning folks here. In terms of services, we have a plethora of different services that we offer, ranging from youth and young adult services. So we provide social support, education, mental health, and youth leadership groups and opportunities, as well as community events. We have a robust mental health department that provides sliding scale mental health to community members, so individuals, couples, and families. We also have a trans program that just concluded Trans Pride last weekend, which was really great. We have an immigration department that supports migrant and undocumented folks and families, as well as youth here through advocacy and outreach. What else do we have? We have so much. And then we also do have a pretty robust advocacy and education department as well, where we work closely with schools and school districts. We also collaborate with Groundswell for our hate prevention program. We do work on legislation or providing education about legislation. And then finally, we also do have a voter engagement campaign as well during each election cycle. That's pretty much us in a nutshell, and queer people are everywhere for that matter in that sense.
Thank you. As we mentioned earlier in our data, the Black community was the most targeted for race-related hate crimes, and it was actually 52% increase with crimes and a 43% increase with incidents. And in your introduction, Ernesta, you mentioned that you guys actually connect the community with health services. And at the end of 2022, actually the Board of Supervisors declared racism and health equity as a public health crisis. That to me was a big statement for the county. And right now I actually would like for you to elaborate more on, what's the impact of the hate activities within the Black community?
Well, as data shows, a lot. And I forgot to share with you that I am a native of Orange County and a proud resident of Santa Ana, and our office is in Santa Ana. This is my home, and for all many years that we lived here, so when I'm experiencing and hearing what others have experienced in Orange County, I take it to heart. Because we all deserve to live a healthy life no matter where we live. I asked the question about the data. It's showing from the last census, of course, that the African Black Americans population is only 2% or less than 2%. But you've heard the data sharing the high incidence rate as well as crime. So I must ask, why? From a human standpoint, why? So when I'm hearing from our communities of just trying to live a healthy life, work, worship, and play, that these incidents are not being sought after, they're coming to them. So I'm asking all of you who may not have experienced what Black bodies experience in Orange County to reflect from a humanities standpoint. What is it in Orange County that some groups are being targeted negatively by just trying to live here in Orange County? What is it in Orange County that it has become normalized, as it was just recently shared, that is not normal? So are we saying in Orange County we have a lot of individuals who are responding unnaturally? Are we experiencing individuals that are not normal? What does that say about our humanity as individuals? I was raised, as I mentioned, in Santa Ana. My father and mother had 8 kids. My father had 11. I'm the knee baby. I'm the 10th. In our household, we were never taught, even thought about treating others less than because they look different. I grew up in a community that we embraced all ethnicities. I went to elementary school, junior high, and senior high, and I moved and married and had family and all that other good stuff. But I always consider Orange County my home. So going back to my childhood and the experience of what is happening now and the incidence rates among African American Black population, I must ask all of you who might not have experienced what others experience in the Black body. What is it? So I'm going to ask you to keep reflecting that on today, and that to do self-reflection. What are you teaching your children? What kind of conversations are you having with your peers? And we often talk about the healthcare system, and that's my space. For over 23 years, that I looked at the data of undersourced, underrepresented, the diversity of why individuals from the Black community wasn't being attending or going with the annual screenings. Well, we have some of the reasons why they do not. So I want you to continue to really ponder from a humanities standpoint, to really draw on your heart. Why are you treating others who may not look like you, act like you, or have different beliefs? Why are they being treated negatively? And I'm speaking from the voices of young adults. I'm speaking from the place of seniors. I'm teaching or speaking on the behalf of individuals who have chronic diseases. I'm speaking and being the voice of those who are asking the same question. Why are we being targeted on an ongoing basis here in Orange County, where it's supposed to be a land of so many opportunities? I'm going to ask you, why?
A lot for us to really contemplate, and we have to ask the question why. I'm going to pass this along to Stephanie, actually. As we mentioned in the data, LGBTQ community most definitely has not been immune to hate. There has been a 126% increase. And I also want to ask you to say, what has been the impact for LGBTQ?
Yeah, I want to kind of take it in observing what's happening on a national scale, right? We're seeing a significant increase of anti-LGBTQ laws that are being introduced, some of them passed across the country. And we're seeing now, too, that there's, there are well-organized, coordinated efforts by these extremist groups that are coming forth and putting candidates into office and electeds into office. And to give you some perspective, over the summer we saw 525 state bills that were just introduced, 220 of those that specifically attack the trans community, and 70 which have become law, which is really eye-opening to see. And so these laws, these bills range from, anti-trans / bathroom bills, anti-drag performances, gender-affirming bans, bans on trans youth and students and people from participating in sports. You might have heard of the Don't Say Gay or Don't Say LGBTQ bills that attack inclusive curricula, which are incredibly eye-opening. And so I read something a while ago that kind of opened my eyes, just because, I went through, the whole thing with marriage equality and Proposition 8, which some of you all might recall and remember, but that we're entering into a new era for the fight for LGBTQ equality here in this country. And here in Orange County, we're seeing, those fights still take place, right? Locally, we're here, my staff and myself are hearing stories from our youth, community members who come out and reach out to us and kind of share, stories and experiences of hate and hate crimes and incidences for that matter. Over the summer, I received a call from someone in South County that said that their pride flag, which was hanging outside of their house, was ripped to shreds with a razor blade. We also heard, or my staff have heard, that students who are just, tabling for Club Rush, to advertise their gender and sexuality alliance, that they were pelted with food. We heard other instances where a teacher's classroom was vandalized because it had LGBTQ flags and materials in her classroom. And then just as of last week, I heard directly from a student that in one of the, art schools here in Orange County, where you would think that, they're very progressive and they're affirming of LGBTQ students and whatnot, that we heard that there was a student with a pride flag, whose pride flag was taken away, and there were students that were stomping on it. And obviously students were observing and taking this all in. And so what is this saying about our own county, that these incidents continue to increase and continue to impact our community members? Of course, we're seeing also at the local levels, right? What we saw in Huntington Beach City Council, where they removed the pride flag, our Orange County Board of Supervisors, that also did the same. We saw also in Huntington Beach that there's anti-Semitic and anti-LGBTQ pamphlets, and that's not even speaking about what's happening at our school boards, seeing increasing amount of forced outing bills that are being passed and introduced in different school boards or school districts across the county and here in Orange County alone. Last night, I was at a school board at Capistrano Unified School District, which I went through, I'm a product of, K through 12, and one of the school board members had introduced a forced outing policy, or a parent notification bill, we could call it. And so they're hoping to move forward with it next month. What is going on, right? This is a blatant attack on our trans youth and our LGBTQ students, for that matter. And so what can we do here as a community? And I'm hoping we can discuss that and also share some ideas of what you all can do, because, we can't do it alone. Like, we need you all to stand up and also equally and come out and advocate for our community, because we need you at this time. We really do. It's no laughing matter, no joke. Like, this is very serious of what's going on. And, I can't say any more, but, it's a blatant attack of what's happening. And there's obviously a pattern going on with the national scale too locally.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I also have to share that a lot of my friends and colleagues are also at the school board, and I know how taxing and tiring it is. It is draining. I really admire the fact that you're here this morning. After last night, I can only imagine. So thank you again. Asha, it's your turn. So what I actually would like to ask you, and first off, I want to thank you for your opening, being vulnerable with us. So here this morning, I'd like to hear more about, what's the trend that's going on at school? The data that we're looking at, there's a 178% increase of bias motivated hate at school. Is there any sort of trends that you see, or go ahead and share?
I think a lot of it is a lack of education or how they're raised. I feel there's a big lack of respect among students unless they share the same ideals, look the same, act the same. I'm a very quiet student. The only thing that stands out about me is a pink backpack and feminine clothing, and of course the fact that I'm queer. But I respect my teachers. I remain in my own bubble most of the time, yet I am one of the biggest targets at school. I honestly don't understand what goes through these kids' heads. I don't know if they think it's funny. I don't know how they were raised. To be quite blatant, I was raised to be racist. I was raised to treat others differently, but I have grown and I've educated myself and learned, and it's quite a simple transition. And I don't understand why there's not more resources or education in classes to treat others equally. It's just, I don't want to go to school a lot of the days because will I be attacked again today? Will I hear something in the hallway? Will I have to leave early because I just don't feel safe? I was hate crimed earlier this year for simply using the men's restroom. It's not wildly known around my school that I'm trans, but it's wildly known that I am the queer kid. And a group of boys walked in and threw a large trash can over the stall into the one I was in. And the worst part is I don't know any of these kids. I've never talked to them. I don't know their names. I don't even have classes with some of them. And I truly don't understand, and I just wish there was more education. I wish parents were teaching their kids if they look different, sound different, whatever, they are people too, and they deserve simple respect. You shouldn't be going about your day planning the next thing you're going to be doing to this kid who looks different. It's scary. Honestly, I don't plan to have kids of my own, but I see freshmen as my younger siblings, sometimes even as my kids, and I'm scared what's going to happen when I leave because I'm the big target now, and I'm very strong, and I can react in ways that aren't a detriment to my well-being. But I don't know how others are going to be able to handle it when I'm not the main target anymore.
You know what? I think that's a good segue then. Maybe you should keep the microphone. What is the meaningful support that you need?
The staff at my school is honestly wonderful. They all care about me, and I can tell that they do. If I report an incident, it's immediately taken on. Especially my band director. He is the biggest support that I have, but I think the more support that we need is teachers talking about it. It's not just supporting me when I come to you. I need you to talk to the class, and I need you to tell them, like, this is not okay. Someone needs to tell these kids blatantly this is not okay, because a week suspension isn't going to change their behavior, quite honestly. I want guest speakers to be welcomed into the school to talk about experiences and to talk about just educate that we're all people. Something, maybe reaching out to the parents and saying, you need to be teaching your kids this, or not necessarily that, but just respect. And part of me thinks that there's support that can help, but the other part of me feels that it's like, I don't know what can help at this point, because I feel like the kids just don't care. They don't care if they get suspended. They don't care if the kid that they bully kills themselves. They would not care. There's just no empathy.
I know that you're a senior in high school, and I have to thank you for actually taking the younger ones under your wing. That's a really big deal. When you transition out and you perhaps go to college, I think that you're going to leave a legacy there. And I think you need to understand that everything that you're doing, protecting yourself, protecting others, that's meaningful. I actually want to pass along the same question to our other panelists. What is meaningful support for your community, especially after a hate crime incident?
I'm glad you asked. gave some thought because I want to make sure that I represented what I represent, humanity, speaking about people and treating people with respect, even though their views or their thoughts and their lifestyle is maybe different than mine, but it's still, bottom line is respect. So express concern, not words. Action. We don't need to hear words. When you hear about a crime or incident that happened in your neighborhood, your community, your school, that you need to take action. How do you take action? Write letters to your city council members. Write letters to the offending organization, to the school board, to the business, or wherever it happened. Show up to the town hall meetings, to show up and support other groups that are speaking against hate crimes. When you're in a situation and you hear it, or you see it, experience it, are you going to sit back and say nothing or do nothing? Or are you going to be in the middle and be a person just neighborly and to ward off such negative reaction or action? Are you going to be sharing it with your leaders in your own community? What can you do? Not words, because words got us here. No action. We want action to take place. Are you speaking among your peers in your workforce? When you hear someone or your coworker saying something negative about another coworker, what do you say? Do you laugh? Do you chime in? Do you say that that's not appropriate? Do you stand up for the person who's not there? Take action. Although it's great for us to do it up here in the panel, so I'm going to give you some of my courage. You could do it too. Talk about it among your family and friends. Ask the question, how would you feel being always targeted, bullied, because just who you look like? How would you feel in another's skin? Attend community and cultural events to understand, as he was just saying and she was saying, educate yourself. How many of you have gone to African and Black cultural events just to be a part of it? To learn, to experience. Attend professional events. Go to an event that you're the only one that look like you, because how many of us gone to events that we were the only one in the room? So that gives you an opportunity to feel what others are feeling. That's action. Lastly, I would like to say that we do have a community-based learning program, and that majority of our students that give us 20 hours per semester are Caucasian. And when they go through the program, I literally have a phone interview because we want every 20 hours. And what we like to let them know of how do you learn to be able to know about another culture by learning, experiencing. And when at the end of the 20 hours, I challenge every single one of them for the last 9 years, 247 students. If you are in an area that, or even with your family, when the information or when there's a negative conversation about someone else, I challenge them and say, it is your job to speak for that other person, to educate your family members and friends. We all need to speak up, and that's what we can do. No more words, they mean nothing. It takes action, because lives, young lives, are being impacted.
Stephanie also has the same question.
Sure. Ernesta, I think you summed it up pretty much. I'll just add a couple points. So one is providing immediate support to those who may be impacted by hate. So we have a wonderful collaboration with 211OC, and we've been able to provide linkage to care services for services that we don't provide immediately, at the center. So providing access to, legal, to housing, to food access, all that stuff is incredibly helpful in providing that support to folks who may have been impacted in some way or another. At the center, we're also able to provide mental health services. So through our Elevate program, within our youth and young adult program, we do have a free mental health that we offer to LGBTQ allies 12 to 26. We also provide group counseling as well at no cost for youth who may be impacted to hate or who need mental health, because as we've seen coming out of the pandemic, that there's been a significant increase for the need of mental health services. Another one is community solidarity. So Ernesta talked about this, but we, like I mentioned earlier, like we really need each and every one of you to turn out and to come out to these school board meetings in particular. So demonstrating community solidarity by going, rallying, attending events and activities for your support and for you all to kind of learn and be in a space where you can learn to be supportive of marginalized communities and communities that need your support in that sense. So to give you some context, when we attended Orange Unified the first month, because they did a first reading and a second reading of their forced outing bill, we had a tremendous amount of support. I would say we were overwhelmingly in the room, in the board meeting room, present, we were vocal, we were speaking, we had signage, like it was great. And then that second meeting, the following month, where they actually passed the bill, we were tremendously underrepresented in the actual boardroom. So with that said, we need you all to come out. We all need you to show solidarity to communities in need at this time, specifically the LGBTQ community, because this isn't going to end anytime soon. We have another battle with Capistrano Unified that's coming up next month, for example. So really showing your support, being present. And there's different ways of doing that, of course, by making posts, or like Helia was mentioning, being active on, posting messaging to support and to raise awareness for how hate impacts us, but also just showing up. And you don't necessarily have to speak, even just being present with, a rainbow flag or a pin, like that also goes a long way. And what I've learned also is taking up space, which is really important in that sense. And that's kind of just adding on to what has already been shared in this sense.
Thank you. One thing I really did pick up on what everybody's been saying is that we need to be physically present. Elected officials and their representatives. I want to ask you guys to stand up. Can you guys stand up, please? I know you guys are here. And yes, we give them a clap, but I also want to reiterate what our announcers are saying is that we need to see you guys. We need to see you present at the school board meeting. We need to see your staff there showing solidarity and answering their calls when they call, responding to emails when they email. And for you to be here for this report, it really means a lot. Okay, so we actually have a question or two from the audience. Any one of you guys can pick this up if you like. What are your thoughts on targeting of minority communities by Huntington Beach City Council? And I'll say to this. Do you have any recommendations for combating this?
Reaching out to our allies first and foremost. I saw Natalie's here on the board. I'm sure they appreciate hearing from folks and saying like, yeah, I see you. Thank you for speaking up. Because oftentimes, like when I was in that room and just hearing all the antis speak out and just spreading all this misinformation and hate, that can be really depressing in a sense, and really, putting weight on yourself in a sense, in that way, I guess. So I think just reaching out and saying like, hey, I see you, thank you for speaking up, can go such a long way. And I'm sure if you want to approach Natalie, reach out to her, talk, like that would be really great. So she knows that she's seen. Thank you, Natalie, for all that you do. So that's one way, is just reaching out to the electeds. And then also just showing up, which we really emphasize as well. And then lastly is voting. Right? That's huge. These are elected officials that the community votes into office. And so each and every one of us has to do our part in ensuring that we're going out to the polls, that we're voting, and that we're also educating our loved ones, our community members, our networks about ways in which we're looking into candidates that help improve our communities in a sense. And so I can't emphasize that enough. It's just voting. honestly. These people aren't going anywhere unless we vote them out. So that would definitely be, I guess, like some of the ways that I could approach that.
Thank you. And Asher, actually, I have a question specific for you. I know that you participated in Bridges, right? And that you runs Relations Ambassador Program. Could you share with everybody what that is?
Yeah, so the Bridges program, specifically at my school, I am a part of, but I haven't been as present as I'd like to be, as I have other responsibilities. But basically, it comes together to try to build a community at the school and tackle issues that we find. Last year, I believe they were just targeting trying to bring people together. And I do see the impact of it. I do see that the fact that we're working toward that goal has been successful. And then with HRAP, I loved doing that program. I learned more how to be a leader and more how to speak for myself. If I hadn't been in that program, I would not be here talking right now because very, very anxious person. But I learned skills to be able to lead and be able to speak my mind and know the importance of it. It was a lovely program. We had discussions. I learned more of other diverse communities, and I want to learn more. It makes me want to learn more. It makes me want to push out and spread like what I know and make sure more students can see things in like a more diverse way. I think HRAP was so beneficial as well. I think if more students were to look into it, I think that would actually help the issues that I see happening at school. As it just opens your eyes, I guess. Even if you're very educated, it's still such a good program to join.
Thank you, Asher. I think one of the things that we really emphasize with this report is it is a real call to action. Right now we're actually at the tail end of 2023, so our report will be coming out next year sometime. I want to ask the panel, can you identify some ways that we can move together, move forward together? So it's a question for every one of you.
I do have a list, because I am a person that can just not talk about a problem, but what are the solutions? We do have solutions, of all of us, collectively, to have solutions. And I'm going to ask you again to look within yourself. Do a self-reflection. What are your biases? Are you one of the ones who say nothing, or are you one of the ones who perpetuate it? Debunk the myth. There are not many Black-led organizations in Orange County. I want that to be debunked. All the public health people out there, that is simply not true. There's over 90 to 100 organizations that we work with on an ongoing basis that are Black-led. So debunk the myths. It's not true. If you say something over and over again, people believe it without even acknowledging. And here in a lot of researchers in the room, and I work with a lot of researchers, but I find that they also not research. They just say what everybody else is saying. How many know there are, as I mentioned, a number of Black-led organizations from social business, national, regional support, faith and community. COVID-19 has changed the world all at the same time. I believe this is a great opportunity for us to be a part of that change and not having the same incidents report and the crime that we as individuals can be able to be in this transformative state. We also know that the data isn't for one person. So that means there's multiple people who are making negative impact on communities, as we mentioned about the uptake in African American and Black communities. Well, that's not just one person. There's multiple people having that same view set, different sectors as well. Attend, as I mentioned earlier, the events to enjoy and to relax. Authentically support organizations without any other intent. Don't come in for something to gain for yourself, but come something in to support and to learn. We want to use data to drive change. Use those dollars as mentioned earlier. We talk about using data and research we often talk about budget. Well, why are we not using that same data that we use to verbalize what's happening, but we don't put those dollars in that same space? It's not a theory. People's lives are being impacted. I would consider mandatory, I am saying, mandatory training for law enforcement, mandatory training for healthcare providers, mandatory training for higher learning institutions, with the role play. True, real scenarios of what it's like being Black in Orange County. Those who identify as a person of faith, no matter whether you are a believer, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Catholic, or any other faith, act upon that. Most of our religious organizations and your spiritual side is to treat people humanly and neighborly. So I would challenge all of you of the faith community, what are you doing to your fellow neighbor? And lastly, change your thinking and educate yourselves on the history, presently, and for the future of a better Orange County. Better Orange County for all. If you truly get to know the African American Black community, you will discover fun, laughter, dancing, singing, eating, and joy. There's no different when we hear often about law enforcement saying that they want to go back to their own families. We all do. When we leave the house, we all want to go back home safe. So I would like to change that language and say, we all want to go back to our homes safely. And it's up to all of us to live with humility for humanity's sake. It's time to celebrate all of us in Orange County. It's really time to heal. But we can only heal through self-reflection and to remember it's all about individualizing your neighbor.
I think, as Stephanie mentioned earlier when you talked about the club rushes, I'm currently in a club rush and I am the secretary of the Gender Sexualities Alliance. And I think more people should be taking action. People are coming up to us and go, "Oh, we support you." I'm like, "Hey, cool." But the second, cool. But the second a group of boys who don't have well intentions come up to our table and start doing stuff, you are a bystander. We need upstanders. We need people going to those events at the councils. We need people standing up. And if you're not really well educated with people who aren't like you, talk to them. I have friends who knew nothing about transgender people, and they asked, "Can I ask you questions?" Be respectful, be mindful. If they don't want to answer a question, understand that. And they're now educated because they talked to me. They educated themselves. And they are now upstanders as well. We all stand up for each other. I'm also in color guard. We are a group that most of the school does not like very much. And we stand up for each other. We catcalling. There's a lot of stuff that happens. But it's really just being an upstander, I think, is the big thing that we need from people right now, is the support. Not just, I support you. It's getting on people for saying things like you were saying. If your co-workers are saying things, don't just laugh, don't just be a bystander, say that's inappropriate. It's just something, we just need active support, not just in the back of your head, I support.
I don't have much else to add, really. Okay, I do have a couple things. So one is holding your elected officials accountable. So do you know who's on your school board, right? Where do they stand on LGBTQ issues? Reaching out, having that conversation or that dialogue, getting to know them so that you know when it's time to vote again, whether they stay in, vote for them to stay in or come out, right? So just essentially reaching out, getting to know who's on, your city council, your school boards, Board of Education, right? Those are big things. Another one is just advocating for inclusive policies and spaces that are affirming, where diversity is celebrated, and where everyone can be seen, essentially. And I think for the most part, we did a good job of like grounding that today. But in your workplace or in your classroom, do you have like a rainbow flag or a pride flag that's visible? On your badge, your work badge, do you have some sort of symbol or a pride flag? Once again, like that kind of demonstrates that you're an ally or an advocate. In your email handle, do you include pronouns, right? These are simple things that y'all could take to be more inclusive and mindful of LGBTQ people in creating that safe and welcoming space. And then lastly is really engaging at the community level. So of course there's different ways of advocating, but I would say if you're not comfortable, to challenge yourself to participate in more community forums, activities, and events. I do want to plug an event that we're doing in collaboration with Groundswell in response to what happened at Orange Unified and what's been happening here locally, is that we're going to be hosting a community forum on Thursday, October 26th at Groundswell to discuss how hate has impacted the LGBTQ community, but how we as a community can be more responsive when it comes to instances of hate. If it's at a school or in our community, going to school boards. Like, we want to provide that space for you all to discuss what's been happening first and foremost, but then also seeing what proactive steps we can take to show up and to be present and to combat hate as it occurs. Because as Helia mentioned, we want to be preventative. We don't always want to be responsive and coming out, but we want to be preventative and providing that education, providing that foundation so that we can create safer, more inclusive, and affirming communities for all people, rather. So please attend if you'd like. You can approach me if you want the QR code to register, because like I mentioned, and I just want to underscore, is that we need every single one of you there. Right? You all heard what happened at Orange, but did you know that Capistrano Unified is also proposing this bill, right? So it's going to be a long way to go in a sense, but we need to come together and stand for each other in that sense.
Well, this actually concludes our panel, and I actually want to really thank everybody here for sharing your stories, for being a voice. And I ask the audience, if you stand with them, if you embrace their stories, their community, I ask you to stand actually. I want you to sit.
To me, I want this to be not only just a symbolism, but a reality that we stand with you. And I really appreciate just the time and the investment that you have for the community. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Wang, for moderating, and for our panelists for sharing your stories, representing your communities, and truly sharing the stories of so many. One of the reasons that there is hate crime legislation is because an attack on one member of a community is an attack on every member. And so I think also any of you who have been impacted by hate probably relate to these stories. So I appreciate the opportunity to hear your stories, to figure out how we can support you better and how we can be the best allies possible. Before we close out, I do want to add some thank yous to folks that are in the audience. I also want to acknowledge the Office of Supervisor Foley, the Office of Senator Dave Mitt, Assembly Member Sharon Quirk Silva's office, Office of Irvine Mayor Khan, Huntington Beach City Council Member Natalie Mosier, and Department of Ed Assistant Superintendent Miramontes. And last but not least, I do want to give a special thank you to Ted Knapp and James Dinwiddie from the County of Orange. They are quietly in the back, literally Ted went all the way to the back of the room. But we work with them so closely to move this forward, to make sure that not only the report is published, but that it reaches the commissioners and the board of supervisors, and that we can continue to push this important work forward. So they're unsung members of this production, so I just wanted to thank you both for being here today and for the work that you've put into the report. I don't think I can give a better call to action than what you heard from these panelists. I'm not going to try to. I am going to say the themes I heard today are prevention. You know, if you've worked in this space, the heartache of telling someone, well, you can report it. You wish you were there before it happened. We know the importance of reporting because this data needs to tell us what's happening in our communities. But we and our organization and all the members of the Hate Prevention Network really want to focus on what happens before a hate crime. What are we doing in that space? How do we make sure that we are standing up long before that happens? What are the community standards that we want to express around what respect looks like, what acceptance looks like? The other theme that I'm picking up is go forth and share. Everyone in this room stood up to say, I support, I will take a stand. However, we will all be around people that may not even know about this. What does it look like to model that when we're in those spaces? We all know that it can be intimidating to stand up for what you believe in if you're not sure that you're going to be accepted for those beliefs. But we hope you'll think about what are the ways that you share this, that you model it. I am not talking about the ways that you fact at people so they agree with you. I'm talking about the ways that we build relationships of trust that create foundations for movements. So I hope you'll take those themes with you today. You heard a little bit about the event that Stephanie shared coming up on October 26th. There's information up here. We also are moving forward in the work that Norma and her team do to do dialogues following this report release with affinity groups. So we will work within those communities to hear, how is this impacting you? What are your recommendations for what we can do differently, do better, and do together? So we'll have information that will come out about how to get involved in those affinity groups. And as we talked about opportunities for sharing, if there are folks in your life that you think, I bet people don't even know that this happens in Orange County, our organization, Groundswell, is going to roll out the Shaping Tomorrow series starting in October, and that'll be a series of webinars, free online webinars on human relations topics. So the first one, we're going to explore how to address racial slurs, specifically on school campuses, but we'll be looking at things like understanding hate, de-escalating conflict. So those will be great opportunities for the people in your lives that you kind of like, hey, here's some new basic information, you can step into it, you can come onto a webinar, you don't have to tell your story, you can just receive information. So all of that will be available on our website at wearegroundswell.org. Norma and I will be available for any interviews after the presentation. And lastly, there should be a QR code that magically appears. Please help us to improve this event in the future and our work in general by responding to the survey on this that is linked to this QR code. Let me again just share my sincere gratitude for all of you that are here today. This report doesn't exist unless we go out and talk about it, unless we go out and ask for the support and leadership that's needed to fight and prevent hate. You are all now ambassadors of this report and this information. We hope you take it forward and into your spheres of influence, and together we will fight hate. Thank you so much.